Hi, my name is Max, and this video session is about DAC6 E.A.T workflow. I will be particularly focusing on the preparation and the execution of these workflows. There will be two videos, with the first one focusing on how to prepare the workflows, while the second one will focus on how to execute the workflows. These workflows that you are currently seeing right now are blueprints. Now, we all know that these blueprints act as a generalized template through which we can automate our tasks. However, in reality, these generalized templates will not allow the tool to meet our specific requirements, and hence we might need to modify them to cater to our needs. With that being said, the preparation segment of this video is absolutely necessary for us to know how to modify these blueprints in order to cater to our needs. DAC6 workflow has three segments. The first one being DAC6 arrangement default template. The second one being DAC6 auto transmission template. And the third one being DAC6 direct submission template. The choice for the auto transmission template and direct submission template are contingent on the process specified on the arrangement template. So let us click on the DAC6 arrangement default template and get right into working with our first template. Once we enter the DAC6 arrangement template, we can see the schematic of the blueprint. This is a generalized schematic where the user cannot modify the nodes, but rather can have a bird's eye view on how the blueprint is structured. Within this blueprint, right off the bat, the first node that starts after the start workflow is the edit arrangement node. This node allows the user to open DAC6 case in a detailed view where the user can both edit and share the arrangement case with other users. In this node, questionnaire can also be attached to gather relevant information and as well as direct the flow of the entire workflow. The next in line after the arrangement node is the start data server node. This node is dependent on the questionnaire being sent in the previous node. The response given in the questionnaire along with the conditions applied will direct which branch of the workflow to be followed. Multiple and/or conditions attached with numerous questionnaire can be applied to this node based on the user's requirement. Based on the conditions being met, the first node to appear after the start data server node is the initiate data server node. If the user wants to start a data survey, the initiate data server node triggers, which starts the data survey. After the data survey, data is collected through the initiate data survey node. The review survey response node allows the data survey data to be reviewed by the relevant parties, allowing the workflow to carry on accordingly. After the entire process of collecting the data through data survey is conducted along with the review, the originators to review node appears. This node can be triggered even if the user decides not to start the data survey based on the design of the workflow. In this node, the entire data collected through the workflow until now is reviewed by the relevant personnel. If the relevant personnel requires any additional data or correction, he or she may send the entire workflow back to edit arrangement node for correction or pass it on to the next node for the tax advisor to review the data. The tax advisor reviews the data in the tax advisor to review node. Here, the reviewer can either edit or share the data with other users as well. After the tax advisor reviews the data, he or she can request for correction through the send back for correction node. This node will send back the entire workflow back to edit arrangement node if correction is needed, or else send the workflow to management for taking the necessary step. The management conducts a review on the entire data collected through the workflow within the management review node and pass on the workflow to the next node. The management approval node determines the next step to be taken. The management may decide to wait within the wait node or send the data to the tax authority through the direct submission and auto submission node. Once the direct submission or auto submission node is triggered, the DAC6 direct submission template or the DAC6 auto transmission template is triggered respectively. The management may require a third-party filing which will trigger the third-party filing node. The management may even decide to discard the entire case if needed, which will trigger the archive case node. Once the management has decided the relevant course of action, the workflow ends by triggering the end workflow node. Once the management decides to file their DAC6 case, either the DAC6 direct submission template or the DAC6 auto transmission template triggers. The DAC6 direct submission template triggers for a company that has DAC6 filings in country that does not allow auto transmission, whereas DAC6 auto transmission template triggers when the country does allow auto transmission. The entire workflow for DAC6 direct submission and auto transmission template is identical to one another, except for the direct submission node presented later on within the workflow, which is replaced by auto transmission node. This template starts with triggering the filing settings node, which allow the user to determine which version of the form that they would want to use. Later on, the create filing from existing arrangement and the create form node triggers respectively, allowing the user to choose the specific case they want to file and import the relevant information. After the information has been imported, edit node triggers, allowing the user to edit the data. Afterwards, this entire workflow from originators till the management node mimics the arrangement default template, from which we can gather how the workflow function. To continue on with the workflow, management may need to address the DAC6 filing errors that the ITP generate based on the tax regulation within the address the error node. After the management has addressed the errors, the do you want to transmit now nodes trigger. The first one being a questionnaire node, which allows the management a choice to transmit the data, and the next one being a conditional node, which allows the user to set the condition to dictate the flow of the workflow. Predicated on the condition set earlier, the wait node may activate or the direct submission node may activate. This node exports the XML or the document and PDF files that may be used in the filing. Subsequently, the successful submission nodes trigger, which allows the manager to determine whether the filing they made were correct. If the filing submission was unsuccessful, the copy filing case for resubmission node activates, which restarts the workflow from edit node. If the filing is successful, then the enter tax reference ID node is generated, which allows the user to enter the arrangement ID. This in turn effectively ends the workflow. As mentioned earlier, this entire workflow is a blueprint, and in order to use this workflow, the user requires to click on the action button and then proceed to click on the add workflow. Once the user enters the relevant information to create the workflow, the user may set the destination of the workflow in the team drive by clicking on browse and then choosing the appropriate folder. This concludes the preparation segment of E.A.T DAC6 workflow. The next segment will be covered in the execution segment of the video.